and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Our guest today is Anant Narayanan, CEO of lifestyle e-tailer Myntra, which has just acquired its smaller rival Jabong in a $70 million deal. Also joining in from our Delhi studio is my colleague Saina. Anant, appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on board. If I can start off by asking, this deal has been in the making for a long time now. If you could break down this deal for us, and what is it that really drove the Myntra team to look at Jabong as a strategic acquisition?
Sure. Thanks, Adit. Thanks for having me. Look, I mean, the reasoning is actually quite simple. Fashion and lifestyle is the largest or second largest category in e-commerce. I think it will be a 40 billion category by 2020. And I think vertical fashion destinations actually are unique in that they can actually sell to the space. I think Jabong, both as a brand, a company, their focus on international brands, their focus on women, their strength in NCR, all made it quite attractive for us. And as you then thought about Myntra plus Jabong, and you basically said, how do we actually continue to really shape the fashion and lifestyle market, we thought it would be a terrific asset, right? And I actually, while it's an acquisition, I also think of it genuinely almost as a partnership to say, how do we actually continue to grow and scale the business? Also, from a Flipkart group perspective, it made a ton of sense because Flipkart Softlines plus Myntra plus Jabong actually can really now actually operate on all parts of the market and continue to actually shape the market. So we're very excited about it both as a group and as Myntra.
So Anant, you've brought up a couple of points and we're just going to break them down one by one. Let's start by talking about the entity. Will Jabong and Myntra continue to operate separately? Is there a timeline on merging both of those entities? What is going to be the brand positioning for both of these? Since you all both function, now of course Jabong is part of Myntra, but in a very similar space.
Yeah. So look, no intention actually to merge the companies, no intention to actually merge the brands. I think Jabong as a brand has its strengths, Myntra as a brand has its strength. I also, by the way, believe, I mean, maybe this is just the optimist in me, but I believe in possibility, right? I actually think we're at 3% penetration of online fashion retail. I think it can be much, much larger. And I think with both brands and the strengths that the brands bring, I think we can actually grow the market. So 95% of our attention is going to be on growth. And we will, of course, leverage capabilities of each other to actually make it better, right? But that's actually the goal of what we want to try and do. It's growth.
All right, and as far as positioning the two brands is concerned, both of you all have, Myntra's strength is its private labels. Jabong's strength is a large number of partnerships exclusive partnerships that it has with international brands. Yeah. How will that play out? Will one of the two be positioned in a more premium position? Is that something that you all are looking at all?
Look, I mean, very early days, I think in terms of what each of the brand positioning should be. I think in the short to mid-term, over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll continue to operate as independent brands. And what we will do is leverage strengths. So you mentioned private brands and international brands, right? So we will, of course, make private brands available on Jabong, the Myntra private brands. And to the extent possible, we will also, take some of the international brands and make it available on Myntra, right? So we will leverage it. This is really about consumers, right? I actually think the consumers, we want to give more choice, we want to make it a better experience, and we really want to actually differentiate on the fashion experience, right? And I think bringing these two together will help with that. So I think that's the short answer to your question.
Anant, will there be any redundancies considering that both companies play in the same space, may have a common base of customers? So will there be any redundancies, any job cuts that people should be wary of?
Yeah, so let me just answer two different parts. One is customers and the other is employees. I think on customers, look, the way I think about it is not overlap in customers. I think of it as an overlap in wardrobe wallet, right? So even if a customer is buying things on Myntra and buying things on Jabong, they're buying two different things because the selection is different. And fashion is an emotional category, right? So you actually buy different things. So I don't see that overlap as a particular issue. I see it as growing the pie and continuing the customer base and increasing the customer base. On the employees and the redundancies, like I told you, I think the big focus today is to how do we grow the pie. I think that's the 90-95% focus. As we think about areas of synergies, we will look at it function by function, but we're in no rush, right? We will, by the way, I mean, the advantages that I see as being part of the Flipkart group is that you do have e-cart, which is actually fairly large on logistics and very efficient. And so to the extent that we can leverage some of those capabilities, for sure we will. right? But I don't think the focus is today on cost. The focus today is on figuring out over the next several months, thinking through the growth plan and how do we continue to scale and shape the market.
How is the acquisition going to be funded? There are reports that suggest it was an all-cash deal. Is it coming internally through external capital? If you're at a liberty to talk us through some of that.
Yeah, look, I mean, the capital is coming from Flipkart as a group, right? I think that's what that's probably the only thing that I can say. We're not raising any external funding to fund this. We have the money to do it, but don't want to comment much more than that on it.
All right, and just following up on this, in an interview in March last year, you actually said that Myntra was on, March this year, you said that Myntra was on the path to profitability and you would turn the corner as soon as this year.
Yeah.
With this acquisition, what are the timelines on that? Does that alter at all? Or it doesn't because, like you just said, this is coming from the wider Flipkart pool of capital?
Yeah, so look, I mean, it doesn't change at all. I think the way we view this as is, I mean, anyway, I think, look, capital spent for acquiring a company is different from ongoing profitability. So I do think we think of it differently anyway, independent of where the money is coming from. We're still on a path to get to profitability by the end of the financial year, early next year. We're continuing to push that both on terms of growth as well as unit economics, which are continuing to improve at Myntra. And I think in Jabong, we will do the same thing, right? I think, use this as an opportunity to continue to get healthy growth. I genuinely believe eventually this market is going to need healthy growth. And I think in fashion and lifestyle, you can get healthy growth. So that's what we're after.
Okay, I'm going to jump in now with a question on market share. So the press release kind of says that you will now have 15 million odd active monthly users. Now, common wisdom, and they're just playing the devil's advocate here, would seem to suggest that a large pool of this 15 million would anyways have been common to both Myntra and Jabong. So what are actually the new additions? What percentage does the new, does this acquisition bring in terms of active monthly users? And what are the projections on that number going forward, say for the next 2 years or so?
Yeah, sure. So by the way, I think, we have about Myntra has about 11 million monthly active users. I believe that 15 is the number that we believe is a unique number that we will actually get to across the combined entities, right? Across both entities, both Myntra and Jabong, so 11 million and the 4 million, which is what we got to in terms of the 15. I believe that eventually, by 2020, we should get this to be 50 million monthly active users in fashion. And I think that's very possible. I think both these brands can grow and scale. Both these companies can grow and scale.
All right. Does this deal also give you an opportunity to work with the global fashion group in some of their other markets? They are present in Latin America, Russia, for instance. Does this open doors in other markets?
No, not really. I think this is very much, very much of an India-focused deal. India as a market is an enormous market. We are very excited about shaping the Indian market. We have more than our hands full at this point, actually just making sure that we serve our customers in a very good manner in the India market.
Sure. Could you give us some statistics on market share once the acquisition goes through? How much of market share will the combined entity have? What sort of leadership position do you aspire to be at?
So look, without getting into a lot of numbers per se, if you just take Flipkart's offlines, Myntra and Jabong, I would say that we actually have a fairly large chunk of the market. I think Myntra and Jabong together, if you take the vertical fashion players, I think will be sort of, in the 35-40% range in terms of market share would be my estimate. But the market shares are hard to estimate, as you know, because both there's new consumers coming in and there's enough churn. But I would say across the Flipkart group, we're in a great position in terms of fashion and lifestyle. And I think, again, while that may seem like it's good, my whole aim in this and our aim as the Flipkart group in this is to continue to grow the overall market where I think there's still huge possibility.
All right, I just want to bring in that the announcement for the Myntra Jabong deal, of course, comes on the day that Amazon has announced the launch of its Prime services in India.
Yes.
Did this come, Anant, to you sooner than expected? I know that everyone was waiting for Amazon to launch Prime in India, but did this come sooner than expected? And what do you make of it?
Look, don't really want to comment on competitors. I think Amazon will continue its strategy, and I think they're focused on the customer, and I think they will continue to do things, which is great. Not particularly, I think if I take fashion and lifestyle, we are innovating around our own sets of services and solutions we can offer customers. So I am much more focused, as I said, not on competition, but on consumers and experience, which is where I believe we can truly win and shape the market. I also think this is not Salil, this is not a traditional market, right? In many ways, this is a market that's growing. So, traditional views of market share, what does competitor do, etc., are actually, in my mind, not what we worry the most about. What we worry the most about is how can I give fashion and lifestyle-specific solutions to the customer, and how can they be innovative and different. So that's what we spend most of our time on.
All right. So, given what we've seen around Jabong, off late, sales have dipped there, especially after Flipkart acquired Myntra. Was this the best possible buy? Since you're talking about customer experience, we've also seen off late sort of poor reviews of what's happening at Jabong. So I'm just trying to put it in the context of what is happening in the wider industry.
Sure.
And just playing devil's advocate, and the analysts and the critics would say that this was just a kind of move to shore up the numbers and so on and so forth, without without substantially adding anything of real value to the customer. So, what would you say to that? What would you say to critics who I know tomorrow in the long form blogs and all of that are going to come after you saying pretty much something on these lines?
Yeah. No, by the way, I think it's always good to get the tough questions, because that's what we think about. I think a couple of facts. I think NPS as a metric, which is one metric of consumer experience, actually Jabong is doing very well, right? In fact, it's actually ahead of Myntra. So, in fact, there may be some things that we actually learn from there versus not. That's number one. Number two is, look, consumer experiences are not static. I've been telling you this about Myntra all through. Over the last 12 months, not only have we grown and improved unit economics, we've actually, by the way, improved NPS as a score by almost 30%, right? And I think all three can be done together. That's the balance you need to get, right? And I believe that, I think, working together and leveraging each other's capabilities, it's not a static picture. The picture is, how do we actually continue to improve this experience, because experience is always relative, and we will continue to focus on Jabong as we will focus on Myntra and say, how do we improve the experience?
Well, it's time to slip into a quick break. On the other side, we continue our conversation with Anand. Stay tuned.